Many people have said to me over the years, you walk too fast. This can be fine when I'm with a group of people who walk at my kind of speed, and it can be a lot of fun, but it can be a problem. If you were to join me, Catherine and Tim on the walk from Aussie Road Church to St James's Junior School every Thursday morning to do a school assembly, you'll see me walking on ahead, them trying to keep up, me realising what I'm doing and slowing down a bit, and so on. And it can disrupt the really great conversation that we might have done. I'm just thinking we need to get there and be able to settle in as soon as possible, but actually we leave ourselves plenty of time, so there's no need. Somebody who has this in common with me is a church pastor turned book author called John Mark Comer, who wrote a book that was recommended to me to read during my sabbatical by a number of people, and so I did. It's called The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry. At the beginning of the book, he describes himself as somebody whose wife always says, you walk too fast and it's a problem. Could you please just slow down a bit? The book talks about him being a very successful megachurch pastor, but at the same time personally starting to fall apart and questioning whether he was doing the right things in a godly way. In the end, he decided to ask whether he could step down from his role and go and lead the smallest of the congregations that they had, which was downtown, or what we would call inner city. And the book is basically his testimony of, over the next 10 years, how he put some things into his life that changed him and his family life a lot, and also changed his spiritual life. I used to be a street pastor when we first started the project in Derby. Street pastors go out between 10 p.m. and 4 a.m. every Friday night and Saturday night, and they minister to people who are using the nighttime economy, people going to clubs and so on. We don't go in the clubs, we stay outside on the street and talk to people. We do first aid, we give people flip-flops so that they don't cut their feet open when they're walking bare feet, having had too much to drink on the way back to the taxi, and we try to get people home safely, working with the police and the ambulance service and so on. On my first few shifts, I found a problem. Because I was there from the beginning of the project, I never got to be a punter. I was always a team leader. And what I found was that during the first half of the night, we didn't really get to talk to many people. In the second half of the night, when the atmosphere changed and people had more to drink, people had arguments with the people they'd gone out with, people were in need of first aid or just trying to get home safely and failing to, we found that it was more difficult to do that because we hadn't spoken to them earlier in the evening. So what I started doing was making it very clear to my team that we were going to walk very, very slowly. Slow enough that it didn't look like we were trying to get anywhere, because in one sense we weren't. We walked around the patch, and every time we came to a junction they would ask, should we go left or right? And I like to think that the Holy Spirit gave us some indication about where to go, but basically the most important thing was to walk very, very slowly. And when we did this, we found that people came and talked to us, because it didn't look as if we were trying to get to a meeting or that we were doing something important that was to be interrupted. That completely transformed our street pastor shifts, because when people were drunk later and having an argument, or when they needed some first aid or were trying to get a taxi and they were being questioned about whether they were too drunk and so on, they remembered the conversation that we'd had earlier in the evening. It also led to people coming sometimes and saying, this is the night I want to talk about the fact that my life's going wrong, and could you please pray with me, give me some direction, and so on. Walking slowly and walking as if we weren't trying to get anywhere, as if the current place where we were standing was the most important thing in the world right now, made a massive impact and difference. And I realise in my time in ministry that has sometimes disappeared from the way that I am. In my first ministry in London, I made a point of leaving extra time and walking very slowly to everything I went to, and people would often come and talk to me on the way because of that. I also found that when it came to running around the Arboretum, which is something that I've been trying to do to keep fit and to lose weight, and also for my mental health and so on. I have run around this path many, many, many times, and you start passing people. Two problems I had. One was I needed something more than the worship music that I listen to while I'm running around to distract me, because 30 minutes is a long time for me to keep running. The second thing was what to do about all the people I keep passing. So I came up with this plan that I would try to make sure that I said good morning or good afternoon and God bless you to every single person that I saw, but only once, because more than once gets a bit creepy unless they've responded. That meant that I had to concentrate on who I'd spoken to, and if somebody responded, then I'd say it again the next time that I passed them. And interestingly, this helped with both things, and I've had a fantastic reaction. In fact, the only complaint I've had was when I endlessly said good morning to everybody, and I realised the second time running around and passing them, they were trying to tell me, actually, you've lost track of time, mate, it's the afternoon. So for the coming up Lent course, we're going to look at the book that John Mark Comer wrote, look at it in detail, and try to be very practical about it. The book in itself has lots of practical as well as spiritual ideas in it, and it's overall trying to oppose the dominating Western culture of materialism and everything that comes from that. So the ideas are practical and spiritual in both measures. After an introductory session, looking at the book as a whole, then we'll go through the 4 answers that John Mark Comer has worked on for 10 years. Basically, the book is a testimony of how he's tried to do that. They all begin with S: silence and solitude, Sabbath, simplicity, and slowing. We're going to look at a video that he's made introducing those topics, and then try to do some work on what practical things could we do that would make our life more godly for Lent, as a way of starting a change in our lives that would help us with these things. By the way, about 10 years into a new way of practicing his life, John Mark Comer was out on a walk with his wife, and she complained that he was walking too slowly.